inch anymore. That's called a jitterbug tamper.
Little jobs, right?
Huh?
That's for little jobs, I think.
Little tiny jobs where you don't have a vibrator and maybe you want to consolidate the aggregate and push it down, and you bring the cream up to the top, as Matt mentioned, or the mortar they call it. Initially, the mortar is what you're actually finishing on top. So you got to push the hard rock, the rock down, and it actually doesn't go down that far. It only goes down like about not more than 1/4 of an inch, and then you got that aggregate at that point. But you got about just enough cream on top to do the finish work. Anyway, this is what you use right here. Oh, and here's this is a striker right here. This is an aluminum rod here. If you don't have one of these, I get a 2x4. When you're looking or you're inspecting that 2x4, you better make sure you look down and it's straight. Otherwise, I mean, you're gonna have a little sump in the middle of your damn floor or whatever. You're gonna have to build it up. So when you're striking, you want to make sure you got it straight in. Okay, so generally this is the first thing. You strike it. After you strike it or rod it back, this is called a bull float. This, they don't use it a lot of times, but this is called a derby. Okay, this is probably about a 3-foot derby maybe. Okay, and it's a wooden. This is just in the float family. Okay, so this is the derby float. This is a bull float. This one here, this is a magnesium float. Okay, this is generally what you do after you strike it and after you bull float it. You got to fill your edges up. This is what you use to fill the edges. Okay, to level it out, even it out, and I'll get with each one of you guys when you start doing this, because a lot of people don't know how to finish. What they'll do is, you've got your form, they'll start running this inside the form work where it's going to create like a drop off or a runoff into your form, which you're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to be even with the top of your form, so that when you edge it, you're going to have that nice uniform edge, not something that's sloping down and then your bull float or your bull nose edge. So what is this called? Magnesium float. What about this? It's a derby. What about this right here? Bull float. That's your straight edge aluminum straight edge striker or edger. Okay, now we don't use these a lot out there. This is a fiberglass float. They even got wooden hand floats as well, which we might have one in there, but I mean, just to show you this, okay? This is in the float family. It's called a joiner. This is what you put your contraction joints. You remember what your contraction joints are, right? They're so that when the concrete does crack, and I don't care how good of a finisher you think you are, concrete is always going to crack, okay? So you need to provide a weak line for that crack to follow, because if you don't, it's going to end up cracking and it's going to form a random crack and take off somewhere else, okay? So this is called a joiner. They even got small hand joiners as well, but generally you want to use one of these when you got a big enough area where you can connect the rods. You see them rods up on top right there? Those all connect to these tools here, okay, or poles. This is your edger. This is a hand edger. This is a bullnose edger. What's that?
They have different sizes on those too.
They have different sizes on them. As a matter of fact, we've got one here that they call a carpet edger. Yeah. Generally, where you don't want to create that bullnose finish or edge. You see the difference? This is more of bullnose. This is more, they call this a carpet edger.
Oh, it's just here.
This one here. Okay, just remember that the reason for using these edgers is to create a non-breaking edge or whatever. Because if you didn't use this, and you just pour it up to the form, and you strip that form, you're gonna have what? You're gonna have a rough edge like this, and them corners, when people step on them, they're gonna break, okay? So initially, that's why you use an edger, is to create that bullnose corner on there, so it doesn't chip or crack or whatever, okay?
You do that while the form's still up?
You do it when the form's still up, and for myself, I wait a little bit, maybe after the guy bull floats and stuff like that. You want to get on that edge, because if you don't, what happens is you've got that aggregate that's right up against that form, and if you wait too long, later on you're going to be fighting to try to get that damn edge in there. So I'll pre-cut that edge. Once you pre-cut it, you just leave it alone, because you're going to come back on it. Everything you do here, you're going to continue to come back and just do the finish in different intervals, different time intervals. Somebody that, you can tell somebody that doesn't know how to finish concrete, because right after they bull float, they'll get on there and they'll pick this up. This is called a finish trowel, okay? You don't use this. You use your bull or your mag float or your bull float. This is one of the last things you're gonna use out there, okay? And you don't use this until, like I was mentioning, till you can put a 1/4 inch of weight into the concrete, because remember, concrete is actually hydrating from the middle and working its way out. So this much, say we're doing a 4-inch pour. So when it's time to actually use this, it's already kind of hydrated up to where you only got like about 1/4 inch of still wet concrete. That's when you get on there with this, okay? So that's a finished trowel. This is a finished trowel as well, but this is called a Fresno. Okay, you can remember, if you can remember California, Fresno, California, okay, what this does is it enables you to get out there, put your long handles on there, to where you can actually start doing the finish work out there without having to get out on the knee board. It depends on what type of finish you're looking at, okay? But anyway, this is called a Fresno. What is this? Edge trowel, or an edger, all right? This? Finish trowel, right? What is this?
Hand trowel.
Anybody? Finishers carry these in their back pockets all the time. They use these even when they're pouring the walls to clean the edge of the walls, or even to get a little bit of concrete and throw it in a hole or whatever. This is called a margin trowel. You'll see this on the job a lot. And it comes in handy. You can tell how wore down this one is. Somebody used the shit out of it, because generally they're nice and square and they're not rounded at the corners, unless maybe somebody took it, but I doubt it. Concrete, you got to understand, the more you work with it, you'll start wearing your tools down. Same as them pipes, them slick line pipes. When you get them pipes first brand new, initially brand new, they're pretty thick walled. By the end of the pour, or by the end of so many pours, the rock, the aggregate in there, it starts rubbing that steel down. Pretty soon, them walls of that pipe are almost paper thin. A lot of times when you're setting up that slick line, you got to take note of that. You got to tap that pipe, or even if it feels too light, you probably want to get rid of it, because if that pump gets, or that slick line gets plugged up with all that pressure behind it, it'll blow that pipe open. There's enough pressure in that line to actually tear the skin, your face apart. If you open up a clamp and you don't wait till your foreman or whatever radials to the guy that's actually running the joystick, or they don't cut off the pressure on the pump before you break it down, and you bust open one of them clamps, there's enough pressure in that to actually tear your face off. But think about it. When they're pouring these high rises, they've got that pump. They've got that pump hooked up to your center core or whatever, okay? And they're pumping that concrete up 70 floors. So just think about how much pressure's got to be in there to push all that concrete, them yards of concrete up to that point. Okay, so this is called a what? margin trowel, all right? And this is just used for like general cleanup, stuff like that. These are what they call knee boards, or skates, or skis, they call them. Initially, say for instance, you let the concrete go on you to a certain point, and you'll be able to see, when we do this pour back here, you'll be able to see where you've got these little voids and bird baths and stuff like that. You might have to get out there on these. Initially, the way you do that is, and these used to have pads on them. I don't know who ripped them out. Okay, not good on your knees. One thing to know about concrete is if you're going to be doing finish work, you better protect your knees. I know a lot of guys that their knees are so bad they can't even hardly walk anymore. And whatever work you do, if you're going to be on your knees drilling or whatever, protect yourself. Okay, but anyway, way you use those is you set them up inside the pour when the concrete is already pretty set up to the point where you're using the finish trowel, and you got to just step into them real slow. Say this is the wet concrete here. Okay, you got to set them down inside the pour like that. You got to be real careful because it's slick. Step into it. Generally, you'll have a finish trowel, maybe a mag in one hand, or 2 finish trowels. Put your trowels down on the pour, step down into it like this. And you're almost skiing because you're using your hands to pull yourself around. You start from the furthest end, work your way back till you get back out to the end of the pour, step out and lift them out, and then fix that area that you just stepped into.
They used to use the plywood.
Plywood?
4-inch plywood they used to use before those came up.
Yeah, there's different ways, or you can even step into the concrete, but it's not a good idea because now you're putting indentations in there. Now you got to get extra concrete to fill in the holes. So with these, you got such a wider span that you're kind of like, no way you're floating on top of the concrete, in other words. Not really, but you are, you know. And then you guys remember what this is, right? This is what that slump test is, okay? That's what it looks like. And this is a whole setup. This is what it looks like. And which, this to me would be a pain to carry around anyway. Generally, they'll carry around a piece of plywood. Here's your scoop. Got your wheelbarrow. They'll set this over like this. Fill it up to there. Tamp it 25 times all the way to the top. Take their rod the excess off. They pull this up real slow. Then whatever slumps down, they put it upside down next to the slumped area. Put this rod across there. Take their tape measure and measure down.
The markings right there.
Huh?
The markings on
Yeah, but you can't.
go about that.
Yeah, you gotta use that extra tape. I really don't know why they would put this, unless they got a board, you know, another straight edge, and then they'll use this to check it, and this goes all the way up to 6 inches. So initially, if I measured it with a tape measure, and it was 3 inches, that would be called a 3-inch slump. That's the consistency in the concrete. One other thing too that they do, and some of you guys have worked around concrete, you've seen them gray cylinders. They're plastic. They're about yay big. They'll generally take out a test in the middle of the pour. They won't do it right away because initially, what are they doing? Them inspectors are walking around inspecting other stuff. So what they'll do, it's like a surprise type deal. And I'm not sure if they do it in every truck, because I mean, I haven't seen, like, shit, we've done 400 yards, you figure 40 trucks. I've not seen, and I think they triple on the cylinders, if I remember. Maybe it's 1 per truck. But you would have 40 cylinders out there. So I think they do it after so many trucks. They'll test it in the middle of the pour. Initially, they want to make sure that they weren't putting water in there. And them test cylinders, what they'll do the same thing. They'll fill them up. You guys will see them out there.